In this lesson, we're going to look at creating methods that have multiple parameters. In this case, we're going to create a method with two parameters. A convert method that will convert a temperature to a type. The user will provide the temperature and the type. In other words, the type to convert it to, either Fahrenheit or Celsius. So let's get started writing the method now. So we start off with the keyword static, followed by the return type. We'll call our method convert, and our parameters are double temp and string type. This is going to be a fairly easy method to write because we're just going to have an if statement, an if-else statement that looks at the type and then decides which conversion formula to use. So we're going to say if type.equals, and we'll just use C first, then we're going to have it return the temperature converted to Celsius. So we'll use the F to C formula from earlier. That's why I left those up there. And then if the type is not equal to C, then it must be equal to F or Fahrenheit. So we'll return the temperature converted to Fahrenheit, like so. And that's all the method has to do. Notice that in this method I have two return statements, but of course only one is executed. If type is equal to C, then this return statement gets executed. Otherwise, and we're assuming here that the other type is F, then this return statement is executed. It used to be that methods could only have one return statement, period, but that would mean you'd have to create a variable to store the conversion formula's result and then return that, and adds a couple of extra lines. And so these days, most experts say it's okay to have multiple return statements as long as it's clear which return statement will actually get executed. And in this case, it easily is clear based on what the user enters for the type. So let's go up to our main program, the main method, and let's test this method. So we need a couple of scanner objects, one for the temperature and one for the type. So we'll do that first. Then we need some variables, double temperature, almost said temp, and string type. Then we'll prompt the user to enter temperature and type. So system out print, enter a temperature to convert. And then we'll get that temperature equals input temp.next double. And then we prompt the user to enter a type to convert to. And we better prompt them here with a C or F to make sure they enter the right type. And then we'll get that from the keyboard. And then we'll end it just by calling the method. And I'm going to move down to the next line and then call the method here, convert temperature and type. And that looks like it should be all we need. Let's save it and then compile and run and see if it works correctly. Clear the screen. So we're going to convert, let's do 32 to Celsius, and that should be 0. Let's do it again. Let's convert 100 to Fahrenheit, and that's 212. So now let's review what we did. We created a method with two parameters, temp and type. Double temp, string type. Then we checked the type, and then we returned either the Fahrenheit to Celsius formula if the type was C, or the Celsius to Fahrenheit formula if the type was other than C or F. The user would have entered F in that case. In the method call, what we had to make sure we did was we had to make sure that the first argument is the temperature and that it's a double, which we have right here, and then the second argument is the type, and it's a string. Now, notice I used the variable type and the parameter name type. There's no conflict there because when the method call is made, all that the method sees is the value that's stored in that variable. There's no name conflict because I have type as the argument and type as the parameter. Because when the method gets called, this value, the value of type, whatever the user entered, is going to be what the compiler sees, not the fact that they have the same name. That's really of no consequence. And usually I don't leave those names the same, but this time I did just to demonstrate that there's not a conflict by doing that. So that's how you create a method with multiple parameters. We could have created a method with 3 or 4 or 5 parameters. Now, you need to be careful with how many parameters a method has. After 3 or 4 parameters, the code gets a little confusing, and you should probably break that method up into multiple methods. At least that's what experts say you should do to make your code easier to understand. It may still be workable, but it's going to be harder for someone else to understand if you have that many parameters in your method. For the next lesson, we're going to look at a different type of method called a predicate method. A predicate method returns a Boolean value, true or false, and checks the condition of the data passed into it. For example, you might check to see if a number is even or odd. That would be a predicate method. Or you might check to see if a character is a vowel or a consonant, and that would be a predicate method that does that. And we're going to look at those in the next lesson.